Hi, my name is Jonathan and welcome to Designing from the Beginning. So what we're going to do is go over, it's kind of like a beginner's course, to intermediate to advanced. So we're going to start here right at the very, very beginning and talk about design. So there's a lot of confusion as to what is software design, design patterns, architecture. There's confusion only in the sense that, being pedantic, right? Or people's understanding of what they do, pragmatically, what they actually do in order to achieve something and what that might mean. And people will reason about it in different ways. People might say that it's abstract, that it's all sort of ambiguous kind of things. Some people might argue it's process. Some people might argue it's the output. It's the things that you actually put together and glue together. Overall, the design process for any industry is largely undefined and is a human endeavor. And being one human endeavor has certain qualities bestowed on it that is kind of abstract in thought, abstract in ideas and creativity. And while it's true, many industries are very, very technical and have real science behind them. In order for proper design to take place, whether that's the design of the product cover, the casing, whether it's a user experience or a process, all of these things are going to take feedback, it's going to take iterative approaches, and it's going to take a certain level of skill. Okay, so let's get started. As I said, I want to get started right from the very beginning. So if you know anyone who is getting into software or is in their first couple of years of software development and needs to understand the basics, the fundamentals, make sure that there's no gaps in their understanding, this is probably the video series for them. So I would welcome if you recommend it to them, bring them along, let's see if it's helpful to them. We're going to start with the first law of software design, and I've got a t-shirt with it. I feel that strongly about it. I'm not American, so I don't put everything on t-shirts, only very, very specific things. Let's talk about the box. Okay, so the box, there it is. Why is this the first law? It's the first law because it represents a list of things, and I can easily go and say this is a vehicle, and I can draw another box and say this is a truck, and I can draw another list and say that this is a cat. And if I'm building a system, it's pretty helpful to list these out, and I could create a list such as that. Of course, but dragging these things around and moving them and saying, well, that's kind of sticks together, that goes together, and perhaps drawing something around those, another box, is somewhat helpful. It's helpful to sort of create the categorization, to create what belongs together. And this is a concept of cohesion. So these two things belong together, this doesn't, and the idea is too different. I don't really want to put that inside there, and you can see why. I mean, it's absolutely a different thing. So we're talking about an animal, we're talking about objects here we're talking about a living thing. They are different. So what am I going to call this boundary? If I create a boundary and I want to drag things in, then I have a notion of what goes inside, what fits inside of that boundary. So if I put another box down and I do something like travel, what does that mean, travel? Well, what does it mean? Well, it's not a thing. It could be kind of an abstract concept of traveling. maybe it's holiday. Where does it go? So maybe it's not quite the right thing to fit in here either. It's not, but it's kind of relating to traveling. Perhaps it's not the right word. And this is how we use the humble box to kind of get a grasp of what we're talking about in terms of categorization. The next thing we tend to use the box for is some kind of labeling. So what I might do is I might say that this truck is a vehicle. And I'm labeling that box. I can label this box, and I can say, well, this is a pet. And the label is quite useful as well because it kind of describes a quality. There are various relationships that the label and that can have. And really, I'm not talking about, a sort of a language of design here. I'm not talking about anything formal. You might have heard of Unified Modeling Language, UML. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about any abstract modeling. I'm really just talking about what you might do on a piece of paper, right? How you might think and how boxes can be used to put things together. You see I've got a boundary here. We might have many boundaries. And these boundaries might relate to each other in some way. You might get internal kind of boundaries that have some kind of crossover, some that don't. But creating this kind of box, tag, and boundary provides grouping, provides a view, some kind of zoomed in level, some kind of view of the system. And that helps us kind of group things together and understand it. Now, what we're really talking about here, to be really fair, is domain language. And I want to introduce that very, very quickly. We're going to cover it later on, but it's probably very important to understand that domain language is when you're talking about a specific kind of industry, a specific thing, then you want to use the language of that thing. So if I'm using, delivery vehicles, I'm delivering goods, that kind of stuff, I might not use the word travel, I might use the word logistics, for example, right? And so the domain language is very important. We're going to get into that a little bit later. I'm going to put it over there. Okay, so the last two things, just to introduce here quickly, is generalization and abstraction, because they are absolutely fundamental to how we think about and reason about a complex design. Because complexity comes very, very quickly. If I start putting down more and more things, so let's say it's a kennel and we can have cats and dogs and goats and other forms of pets, and we're putting all of these things down that they can, even a bear can come here to our sanctuary, right, our lodgings. So if this is the case, well, they're all pets, let's say, that's fine, there's a label. The cat, dog, goat, bear, let's keep that singular as well. So when we're reasoning about this, we're getting into the domain language of these things. And if we keep on listing things, right, let's have a bird here as well. And we keep listing, you can see that the complexity starts growing. And complexity comes from the distinguishing of things. If I have to say, okay, I've got a pet, but what type of pet is it? Well, it's a cat. So let's say I need a report, or I need some list on screen. I need some app to say, give me a list of pets, and I need to find a dog and a goat and a cat. Well, then I need some kind of filtering or search mechanism. I need to understand the difference, so that means I need a quality, a pet, and I need a type perhaps, animal type, cat, dog, and if I'm doing a report that says give me only cats please, or show me all the dogs that are currently here, being kennelled, for example, then I need to make distinguishing actions. I need to say where, if I'm using SQL language, I might say give me all the pets where the type is dog. And that's a form of distinguishing. And the more things that I have in my code that distinguishes between things, the more complicated it gets, right? Because I'm creating associations, I'm creating connections, I'm creating cohesion between these things. So remember, cohesion, just to put it lightly, is what fits in a boundary. If I put a boundary over here, I could say, well, all of these things technically are cohesive, they go together, the pet is the label perhaps on this boundary, and now I'm creating some kind of cohesion between these things. Now, generalization is something that's used to rather say, well, cat, dog, goat, bear, and all of those things, well, these are animals. And I'm generalizing, right? So all of these things are animals. And I can say, well, there's my generalization. I can also say they're pets, but if I say that they are pets, then I'm saying something additional. I'm saying that there are animals, but a pet is a slightly more abstract concept, right? Animals is describing that each one of these are commonly the same. They are generally the same, and they are generally animals. They are not all generally pets, unless, of course, I'm only talking about pets. So therefore, I have a boundary that I'm kind of looking at here. The boundary of having, animals that are capable of living with humans in a human environment and not harm and hurt and so on. And the definition of pet might have a gray area as well. So animal, we're never going to have any fight about that. Well, hopefully not. And we're going to say that this is a very good generalization. But as we move from pet into other things, so let's think of another form of abstraction. So another abstraction here, top of my head, might be a thing. Okay, so a thing. So what is this thing? Well, a thing is going to be kennelled. Well, kennel isn't a generalization of cat and dog, is it? Well, maybe it's too general, right? So generalization, the more generalized you are, this is kind of a heuristic way of thinking about it, the more general you get, the more abstract it becomes. So at one point, animal, cat, dog is just kind of a generalization, and then if you go into pets and to eventually a thing, you're getting a certain level of abstraction. And this is the last thing for this video. We're going to come back to the box in video 2 as well, and perhaps all throughout the series how we link all these things up. But the last thing to mention in this video is that the humble box is something where generalization, abstraction, grouping, boundaries can take place in your mind. Drawing it is very, very helpful. And if I was drawing a domain language, a domain that I did not understand, I would have to go and do some research. And when I start doing my research, I can drag and drop these boxes with all the terms that I learn. And this is a very good way. This is a first law of software design. This is a good way to grapple or to grasp a domain and to start understanding it and the relationships between them. You'll see that I have no lines between them, and that's because that is the second law. The second law of software design is the humble line, and that's in video 2. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this is the video for you, and if you know of anyone who might appreciate this video, please recommend it to them. We are going to do about 10 episodes in the series, and it's gradually going to get harder and harder, and hopefully fill gaps in software design thinking. Thanks very much for watching.